OMEGA have just released a brand new Speedmaster Pilot's watch. It honestly seems like they've kind of saved up all their best releases for December of this year, for Christmas time. I mean, firstly, they had the Seamaster No Date, then they brought out a new iteration of the Seamaster No Date, and now they've brought out this banging watch. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the Chisholm Hunter channel. My name is Harrison, as always, and it's about time we dived into this new Speedmaster. So let's firstly talk about some of the history that's going on with this watch before we get into the specs and my thoughts and feelings. OMEGA actually has a really long history with pilots. Starting in World War II, the brand actually delivered more than 110,000 watches to Great Britain's MOD to support its Air Force and Navy pilots during their service. Now, the most famous watch that they used to use here was the CK2292, and this was supplied to the majority of the RAF and Fleet Air Arm personnel. Then fast forward to when the Speedmaster was actually born in 1957, it was quickly adopted by some pilots in the US Air Force, many of whom would later become Mercury astronauts in NASA's first manned space program. In 1969, the OMEGA Flightmaster was released, and also in the year 1969 is the first Concorde flight. So there is a couple of saucy facts about the history of the pilot's watch. So this doesn't come out of the blue. There is a lot of history with pilots, but everyone just associates the Speedmaster with NASA and the space exploration missions. Okay, so stripping all that away, let's just look at the watch itself. It's colorful, it pops, it has flair, it has fun, and I love that. And everything on this dial, everything on this watch is inspired from a pilot's cockpit. Putting the design and colors aside for a second, and we'll talk about them in a second, let's talk about the sizing, because I think they've nailed the sizing here. So this watch comes in at 40.85 millimeters in diameter, 14.7 millimeters in thickness, so it is a little bit thicker. And the lug-to-lug comes in at 49.6 millimeters. It has sapphire crystal glass with scratch-resistant coating on both sides, and I know that some people might see that as a negative, and personally, I don't. I mean, I've had the OMEGA Seamaster 300 meters for years now, years and years and years, and it has the same sapphire treatment on both sides. And I've not got one scratch on it. So technically, yes, it is easier to scratch it with that coating on the outside. But I've never had that issue, and I've taken my watch everywhere. So I don't think that's really an issue. It's water resistant to 100 meters and of course comes with a beautiful Speedmaster bracelet. But with that said, can you imagine this on a black NATO strap? I think just because the colors on the dial of this watch, it would contrast the strap so beautifully. I'd love to see that. But let me know your thoughts on that one. Sometimes I can go a bit overboard with the strap options. So let's dive into that dial. So firstly, it comes in a matte textured black, and that black color contrasts beautifully with the subdials and the pops of color that they've actually added to this watch. Starting on the left-hand side with the small seconds, we can see that it actually has a target sight aesthetic, inspired by, of course, pilots' cockpits. It features a varnish matte yellow hand and an artificial horizon in blue. So you've got yellow, you've got blue, you've got black, tons of pops of color in this tiny little subsection of the watch. I feel like OMEGA are having a lot of fun with this watch. And in the watch community, there's this really weird thing that happens, that we kind of bash brands that don't have fun, that don't release vibrant colors and do stuff that's not normal, that's not typically done. But as soon as they do it, we kind of bash them because we don't like it. And I don't think that's the way that we should be. I think that we should praise OMEGA here because honestly, the colors, the fun that they've had with this watch, it's awesome and you can feel it. At the subdial on the right-hand side, at the 3 o'clock mark, we can see that the 12-hour recorder is inspired by a burn rate indication, again, in the aircraft cockpits, with a triangular matte orange hand and also white numerals behind that. On the tip of the second hand, we of course have that bright orange color, which correlates directly to, you guessed it, the cockpit and pilots and planes and all that good stuff. Now, when it comes to the superluminova on this watch, you can see that they're actually done in kind of big blocks. And I really like that. It kind of makes it look that little bit more 3D. And you can see the superluminova down the edges at night. Whereas in other watches, you have a black border around the superluminova, so you can only see the top. In this one, you can see the sides as well, which is actually really cool. Now, I haven't seen the superluminova in person, and they can always look very different online to what they actually are in person. So I reserve judgment here because we will do a follow-up review if that's something that you guys want to see. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see that lume in person rather than online, because online, it just never does it justice. It's either too bright or too soft. The bezel in this watch is in full black and most of the writing is in white, giving it beautiful contrast, but a little flair, as OMEGA have done in this watch. They've popped a little bit of orange in there, which just stands out so much more. Honestly, I cannot wait to get this watch in the studio. It looks sick to me online, and I know in person it's going to blow me away. The movement in this watch is actually covered up by a closed case bag, and it is the caliber 9900 movement, a self-winding chronograph with column wheel and a coaxial escapement. It's certified by master chronometer, approved by METAS, and resistant to magnetic fields reaching 15,000 Gauss. It has a silicon balance spring, 2 barrels mounted in series, and time zone functions. It also has a rhodium plated finish with Geneva waves in arabesque, and it has a power reserve of 60 hours. Now, when we compare this to, let's say, the white dial Speedy or the sapphire sandwich black dial Speedy, we can see that it actually comes in quite a lot thicker than that watch. I mean, this watch comes in at 14.7 millimeters, whereas the other Speedies come in at 13.2. And I'm not actually too sure why this is. It's hard to tell from photos, so if any of you guys know that, then please let me know in the comments. But I would have liked to see this watch a little bit thinner. With that said, remember that this watch does have a higher water resistance. It has 50 meters higher water resistance than the Sapphire Sandwich. So the Sapphire Sandwich only has 50, but this has 100. And it also has 10 hours extra in power reserve in this watch. So maybe the thickness comes somewhere from there, and that's definitely features that are better about this watch, technically speaking, than the Sapphire Sandwich. Overall, if I'm totally honest, I think that Omega have really done a great job here. They've had a lot of fun with this watch. They've injected a lot of energy into this watch, and you can tell, and I don't think it's right that the watch community bash things for being different. I think that it's a great thing when things are different, and this certainly is different. I really, really like this watch, but let me know what you guys think. If you have enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that subscribe button, or follow our Instagram at Chisholm Hunter Watches, or my Instagram at HP Lifelens, or follow our podcast at Enter the Mind Podcast. And I'll see you guys real soon.